Good morning. Welcome to another edition of PreMarket PulseScan with yours truly, Dex, the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave price trigger reports that we put right in your hand each and every trading day. It is time. It is time. We've come to another time to break some knowledge, kick it a little bit, talk about what's going on in these markets, and let's jump right into what's happening here because there's so much going on, ladies and gentlemen. Just when I think I can kick back a little bit, no. There's always something jumping off. All right, so your Dow futures right now is up 92 points at 25,555, which is showing to be quite the resistance area. NASDAQ 100 is up 12 3/4 points at 96.07 3/4. E-mini S&P 500 up 7 points at 30.61. Russell, which I made my hustle, is up 7.6 points at 1412.4. Bitcoin futures composite index, same price it was when we did the end of day report last night. 10,265, up 615 bucks. Overnight high still 10,565. All right. The nat gas is up 2 cents at $1.79. Crude oil is up 45 cents a barrel at $35.90 a barrel. Long bond is off 10/30 seconds at 177 and 14/30 seconds. Gold futures up $2.40. It's $1,752.40 an ounce. Silver futures are off 6 cents, trading at $18.76 an ounce. US dollar index is falling deeper into the 97 handle, trading at 97.64, down 18 pips. The euro dollar is up 39 pips at 111.75. Pound sterling up 55 pips at 125.51. Aussie dollar up 54 pips at 68.52. Canadian dollars off 36 pips at 135.41. Euro yen right now, oh my goodness. Euro yen is on fire. It is up 130 pips at 121.08. And the Kiwi New Zealand dollar is up 21 pips at 63.17. All right, so soybean futures are up 4.5 at 8.45. Corn is up 3/4 point at 3.24, and wheat is down 1/4 at 5.15 even. All right, so that is your overnight markets. Man, a euro yen is kicking tail. Who would have thunk it? All right, so coming into today, here's our notable quotables. And we have a couple. All right, so wheat has a crash alert for today. E-mini S&P literally has a crash alert for today as well, but I don't think we're going to manifest much selling at this point. So I'm not expecting any production on that one. Let's see, and then the last one would be nat gas, also has a crash alert. I'm not expecting any production on that one either. So I think that the system is forward looking. So we'll have to watch over the next 3 to 5 trading sessions to see what cometh. I do not ignore rally and crash alerts ever. Sometimes the system does lead the market 3 to 5 days out. So you just have to keep an eye out and see what happens. Other than that, things are still what they are. We have a lot, though. We have a lot of markets still in bear markets trying to overcome, and some are not really making it. They're struggling. Like, for instance, we got Canadian dollar is in a bull market right now. But the Australian dollar is in a bear market. So is the euro yen. So is the euro dollar. So is the British pound. So is the New Zealand dollar. And the Japanese yen is in the Kumo cloud of death, according to the algo charts. All right. And so is corn futures in the Kumo cloud of death. All right. So that's pretty much where we are right now as far as markets are concerned. Like I said, not necessarily a lot of things going on in the markets themselves per se, but there is a lot going on around the world that cannot be ignored. Even though your attention may be temporarily sidetracked because of all the stuff that's going on elsewhere, what you don't know is what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. All right. So what's up to everybody in the live? What up, Mick? You say those pulse waves are paying on the forex? Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep. Still holding that long euro yen. Yep. That's what's up, man. Just make sure you locking in some profit though. You don't want to give it back to the market. So what's up, Sling? What's up, Mick? What's up, Kyle? What's up, V-Dub? Everybody, Sean, everybody, all the PulseWave family. All right, let's get into the market news because that is very important. So let's focus on the market news now. Overnight market news is as follows. Global stocks jumped as analysts say widespread protests in the U.S. will have little to no effect on the markets. Other than insurance and possibly reinsurance, the protests themselves should not directly impact financial markets, said Jeff Hall, managing economist at Refinitiv. Well, that's funny because yesterday, the headlines on Bloomberg was that markets were pulling back because of the riots. That was the headline. So very interesting how he is stepping outside of the box on that one. All right, so the stock market doesn't care about social justice. Jim Cramer says investors are backing potential winners from protests. From this stock market's perspective, everything that happened this weekend means the stay-at-home economy will last longer than we thought. You think? They were talking this morning on Bloomberg that the economy, even if everything were to go right, if they were to hunker down and change poor policies, things like that, and to get and let's say they got everything on track. Today, everyone had an epiphany. The president had an epiphany. Everyone had an epiphany, and they agreed that, you know what, we've all been bugging. Let's get the economy back on track. Even if they did that, the word on the street this morning is you wouldn't see a rebound for 12 years. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 12 years. It will take 12 years if everyone had an epiphany today, an economic Austrian economy epiphany. It would take 12 years. 12 years. That's greater than a decade. That's a decade plus 2 more years. That's a decade plus 24 months. So a decade plus 24 months. 24 months is a long time. 24 months is a long, long time. All right. A woman can give birth to 2 children. She can have 2 pregnancies in 24 months. That's a long time, man. That's a long time. It's a long time. Germany is planning a fresh $112 billion domestic coronavirus stimulus package just days after the EU launched its historic $826 billion plan. They're really throwing a lot of money at this, aren't they? You might even say they're really serious. Germany is reportedly considering measures such as aid for families car subsidies, to name a few. And that's funny because Germany is really, they're a very old country, much older than the United States. Matter of fact, most developed nations are older than the United States. But Germany, they go way back. Okay, and last time I checked, it was some time ago, to be honest. But they are still working on an old type of a system, like a feudal system, where, let's say, your parents owed money and they had to file bankruptcy or whatever. Your children would be responsible for their parents' debts and so on and so forth. Right? Isn't that crazy? So your parents die without paying off their mortgage, or they owe some money. Well, guess what? Now you owe it. That's crazy. So yeah, they're still operating under that system. So I think it's funny that they're talking about putting together a package to help families. So are you going to forgive the family's historic debt, generational debt? That's crazy, isn't it? All right, if they've changed that, if all my German listeners who live in Germany or still got family in Germany are very familiar with what's going on in Germany, if they have changed that, can you please drop a message here in the live chat? I appreciate that. All right, the French economy will shrink 11% this year in a brutal recession after the country imposed one of Europe's harshest pandemic lockdowns. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said the government would avoid taxing households to cover growing debt from the coronavirus pandemic. Facebook is getting slammed by civil rights leaders and losing businesses as employee strife rages about its stance on Trump's post. Civil rights leaders said Mark Zuckerberg refuses to acknowledge how Facebook is facilitating Trump's call for violence against protesters. I don't know if these quote unquote civil rights leaders are living on the same planet. I don't know if the people that are taking this left-leaning stance are even capable of thought processes outside of the bubble that they live in. But the president is not advocating violence against protesters. See, again, they're playing with words and language, trying to confuse the facts. He is not calling for violence against protesters. As a matter of fact, he's not calling for violence at all. He is calling for law and order against terrorists. What is the definition of a terrorist? A terrorist is someone who causes terror, harm to property and persons, innocent property and persons, terror against innocent civilians, persons, and property through means of violence, etc., etc. It is certain quote unquote protesters that are doing violence to personal private property and businesses and persons. All right. If you want to put the blame on who's using violence, it is those that are looting and destroying and defacing property and harming innocent people. Protest has the connotation with it as someone who was basically walking a picket line. You're marching on Washington. You're calling for whatever the cause is, and it's done in a peaceful way. You're not putting hands on people. Okay, you're not damaging persons and property. Protest is different than civil unrest. All right. Protest just means I am protesting an evil that is being done, and we're looking for justice. That's a protest. But rioting is not protest. Rioting has the connotation of violence behind it. When you think of riot, you think of someone falling and being trampled to death. You think of you picture a herd, a stampede of jungle animals when you think riot. People are spazzing out in the streets. They're bugging out. They're bugging. They're out of their mind. They tripping. They lunching. When you think riot, they've had enough. They're going ham in the street. That's what you think. You think Jamaican elections when you think riot. You think off with their head France when you think about riot. All right? Riot has the connotation of violence in it. All right? We said riot. That's what's up. That's not what's happening here. They lunching, they tripping, they bugging, they spazzing. All right? They're out of their minds with rage when you think riot. Looting comes with rioting, not protest. When have you ever seen peaceful protesters rioting in the streets? You don't, because that's why they're called peaceful protesters. They're just peacefully protesting. They have a right to assemble. They have a right to protest, pandemic or not. All right? So these people are tripping. They're bugging. All right? Like the song from Whistle. We're only bugging. Bug, 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 bug. Remember that? We're only bugging. All right? That's what they're doing. They bugging, but not in a good way. So the president is saying, we need to stop this. Put a stop to this. This is not lawful, and it is not helping anybody. This ain't the Congo. All right? This is not a military coup that you usually have every other Thursday. All right? This is not that. This is not affecting the price of cocoa. The people are just going cocoa. All right? So the president is saying we need to chill with that. We need to put a stop to that. All right? This ain't right. This is whack. Plus, it doesn't make any sense because according to what's going on, the officers that were involved in Mr. Floyd's death have already been dealt with and or are being dealt with. They've been fired. They're being prosecuted for murder, all of that stuff. So why is everyone rioting? I could understand if this was a Rodney King type of a verdict and they found all the guilty officers innocent and they acquitted them. And we got live footage again of someone, now Rodney King didn't die, but Floyd did. Now I could understand. I wouldn't condone, but I could understand people spazzing out over something like that. You witnessed the death of an innocent civilian done by law enforcement. Yeah, I could see the people getting a little hot under the collar with that. I could understand it then. I could say, yeah, I don't condone it, but I understand. The people have had enough. I get it. I get it. But it's funny because you know that this is phase 2 of the pandemic, right? You know this is all part of the pandemic, right? You know you're being messed with in the mind, don't you? I hope you do. I hope you realize this, rioters. I'm talking to you rioters out there. All right, we're going to get back to y'all later. Southwest offers a buyout package as temporary lead to ensure survival. The airline, which has not imposed any layoffs or furloughs in its 49-year history, said its flying capacity would probably be down about 30% in the fall. So they're already projecting a few months out now, saying that, you know, this is it. All right, this is it. All right, they haven't done this in their history, but this is where they are at right now. They're in survival mode. Oil prices hold ground ahead of OPEC Plus meeting on extended output cuts. OPEC Plus producers are considering extending their production cut of $9.7 million barrels a day into July or August at an online meeting likely on June the 4th. Global stocks are up. In Europe, Germany's DAX rose 3.8%. Britain's FTSE 100 rose 1%. The Euro Stoxx 50 rose 3.5%. In Asia, China's Shanghai Composite rose 0.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 1.1%. And Japan's Nikkei rose 1.2% at the close. In the U.S., the Dow, NASDAQ, S&P 500, blah, blah, blah. You know, they're up. I gave you that information when we first started. And that's about 0.6% rise. First earnings expected, Zoom Video and CrowdStrike are the highlights. On the data docket today, we got the API weekly crude oil stock is due for release. So that's your overnight market news, all of which is mad important. All right, so now it's time. The time has come to deal with information that may be difficult for people to hear. All right, there is our opening bell for those inclined and need to put some tickets in, move some stops, etc., etc. Opening bell in Wall Street is nigh upon you. Full disclosure, I'm still long this silver, man. I'm holding on. I'm still along the UCO. I did move some stops enough to lock in profit on silver and allow it to still wiggle. And on the UCO, I'm still just letting it ride for right now. I want to do some more operating, but right now, this is going to be day 2 for me in the lab. I'm working on some algos today, so that's going to keep me pretty much out of the picture for a minute. But if anyone needs me, I will be available. You can leave me personal messages in the trading room, and I do promise to get back to you pronto, in a jiffy, all that good stuff, okay? All right. You will be seeing an update to the PulseWave reports. You haven't seen it in a while because I was doing some reconfigurations, but you're going to start to see imported back into the reports the Killer Kumo Cloud indication. So you'll know now, and this will be going by the algo charts. Everything I do, as you know, is has to do with the algo chart. So you'll be looking at that. You'll be able to see that, and that'll help you where applicable. All right, because I know you see it at night, and then you wonder on the report if the report's taken any of that into effect, or have we moved, have we rallied, have we not, what's going on, what we got to do. You know, I know you're looking at all of that. I know, man. I know these things, okay? So now you'll be able to see all of that, and you'll know what's up. For those that have been with me for a minute, you know what that is. That's that 88 reading. Yeah, when you see an 88, you know what time it is. And that's going to be important. So you're going to want to see that. And it's going to be the plus and minuses again. So a plus 88. Just tell you what kind of cloud it's in. Bullish cloud, and the negative 88 will be the bearish cloud. So that will be back in there, and that will be explained under the talking aspect of the report. They'll just add that, so you won't have to worry about being confused or nothing like that. And then you know it, man. We stay in the lab, man. That's what I do. I live in the lab. I stay in the lab. I am always in what? The lab. That's what we do. All right. So also I did remember to add those extra securities that you guys asked me about last night to be added. I added them to the equity report, so you should find them there on the equity report, and they will be also they have also been added to the overnight end of day report as well. For those of you who don't know, we used to do about 30 securities at night, 30 different charts. Now those charts are up to 48 charts now. I have no intentions on going over that. All right, almost 50 charts is enough for anybody. I don't know anyone on social media that covers as much as I cover in a day. All right. So I think you guys are getting your fill and you should be all right. All right. Okay. Did someone answer my question earlier? I was serious about that question with Germany. So let's see here. Okay. Mike says usually your children will be next in line and will inherit your share of descendants' debts unless they also disclaim the inheritance. Okay. Good looking out. Thank you. Therefore, in general, heirs under German law are personally liable with their own assets for descendants' debts. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Then we got a comment about protests. Okay. I have personally been to over 70 odd protests and learned the hard way they always get hijacked. You and your group will get smeared in a gas. Oh my goodness, dude. That's disgusting. But okay, all right, that's good information to know. Okay. And the media is always there to promote the hijackers, right? Yeah, you're right. Okay. Thanks for that intel. All right. So yeah, I think we've seen that, you guys. As far as my knowledge of it, as far as monitoring the situations, I think for me, the first time I saw it was with the Tea Party. Okay. All of a sudden, it seemed like the Democratic National Convention, they felt they had to get involved. They had to take that over. They needed that momentum. So then you started hearing them talk about it, and then they were the only ones being covered. And then it took fire away from Ron Paul's audit the Fed movement and even his run for president. It took all that away. All right. So, like I said, those in power love to remain in power. Okay. Let's go in. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to get your cup of coffee, tea, and crumpets, whatever you fancy. It is time to get on your big boy pants and your big girl panties and get ready. It's time to dive into the deep end of the pool. It's time to deal with and talk about what other people refuse to talk about. It's time to go in. And yes, at the end of the day, all of this comes back round to the markets. No matter what it is, it always comes back to the markets. If you doubt that, just take a look at the structure of the current equity market. You will find that there is an ETF for just about everything under the sun you can think of, and or a security, a stock that takes that into account, that covers it. You think I'm playing around? I'm not. There's an ETF for just about everything under the sun, and or individual shares of stocks. All right, we got hundreds of thousands of shares of stocks, including ETFs around the world, and they cover everything. Everything comes back around to math. You can't get away from mathematics. You can't get away from geometry. You can't get away from none of these things. Calculus, it's everywhere and everything. There is nothing made under the heavens, under the sun, that does not involve some type of mathematics. You cannot get away from it. All right. The markets speak to you. They let you know what's really going on. If you're paying attention, the markets will tell you what's really good. All right? You just have to know where to look, and you got to have the ears to listen. So let's dive into the deep end of the pool now, shall we? I hope you're ready. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Scientists are starting to become convinced that COVID-19 is a man-made virus. Dun, 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 dun. Now, I told you guys this back when the thing first came out. I didn't get no credit for that. I was the first dude on social media that told you what to look for as proof that this thing was man-made. Do y'all recall that? I told you how you were going to see it start to morph and you were going to see this and that, and I laid it all out for you. Were you listening? Was anyone really paying attention? I don't do this for fun. All right, this is something that must be done, and the burden has fallen on me to do it. That's why I do it. Two unique features of the SARS-CoV-2 are convincing a growing number of scientists that it was man-made and not the result of natural evolution, according to the Daily Telegraph. First, the virus binds more strongly to human ACE2 enzymes than any other species, including bats. Second, SARS-CoV-2 has a furin cleavage site missing in its closest bat coronavirus relative, rat G13, which makes it significantly more infectious, a finding that was reported back in late February. According to Israeli geneticist Dr. Ronen Shemesh, the furin site is the most unusual finding. Quote, I believe that the most important issue about the differences between all coronavirus types is the insertion of a furin protease cleavage site at the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2, he said. Such an insertion is very rare in evolution. The addition of such 4 amino acids alone in the course of only 20 years is very unlikely. Shamus, who is working on a treatment for COVID-19, believes the novel coronavirus was most likely created in a lab and did not evolve in nature. There are many reasons to believe that COVID-19 generating SARS-CoV-2 was generated in a lab, most probably by methods of genetic engineering, he said, adding, I believe this is the only way an insertion like the furin protease cleavage site could have been introduced directly at the right place and become infective. Dr. Shemesh, who has a PhD in genetics and molecular biology from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and over 21 years of experience in the field of drug discovery and development, said it is even more unlikely that this insertion happened in exactly the right place of the cleavage site of the spike protein, which is where it would need to occur to make the virus more infectious, the Daily Telegraph. Once again, we have exposure of truth. But have the people been so brainwashed, so propagandized that they can't even hear this information? What makes it even more suspicious is that fact that this insertion not only occurred on the right place and in the right time, but also turned the cleavage site from a serine protease cleavage site to a furin cleavage site, he added. In January, a team of Indian scientists wrote in a now retracted paper. You know, it's amazing what a M16 to the temple can make a man do. A retracted paper that the coronavirus may have been genetically engineered to incorporate parts of the HIV genome, writing this uncanny similarity of novel inserts in the 2019 nCoV spike protein to HIV-1 GP120 and GAG is unlikely to be fortuitous in nature, meaning it was unlikely to have occurred naturally. Then, in February, a team of researchers in Nankai University noted that COVID-19 has an HIV-like mutation that allows it to quickly enter the human body by binding with the receptor called ACE2 on a cell membrane. Other highly contagious viruses, including HIV and Ebola, target an enzyme called furin, which works as a protein activator in the human body. Many proteins are inactive or dormant when they are produced and have to be cut at specific points to activate their various functions. When looking at the genome sequence of the new coronavirus, Professor Ruan Jishu and his team at Nankai University and Taiyin found a section of mutated genes that did not exist in SARS, but were similar to those found in HIV and Ebola. According to the Nankai University study, the furin binding method is 100 to 1,000 times as efficient as SARS at entering cells. So this has been engineered to be a step above the rest. This protein cleaving protein is highly promiscuous. It's found in many human tissues and cell types and is involved in many other virus types, activation and infection mechanisms. It is involved in HIV, herpes, Ebola, and dengue virus mechanisms, said Dr. Shimish. If I was trying to engineer a virus strain with a higher affinity and infective potential to humans, I would do exactly that. I would add a furin cleavage site directly at the original, less effective and more cell-specific cleavage site. Meanwhile, Flinders University professor Nikola Petrovsky found either a remarkable coincidence or a sign of human intervention, telling the Telegraph that COVID-19 is exquisitely adapted to humans. We really don't know where the virus came from. That's the truth. The two possibilities is that it was a chance transmission of a virus, and the other possibility is that it was an accidental release of the virus from a laboratory, he said. Adding one of the possibilities is that an animal host was infected by two coronaviruses at the same time and COVID-19. The same process can happen in a petri dish. In other words, COVID-19 could have been created from that recombination event in an animal host, or it could have occurred in a cell culture experiment. I'm certainly very much in favor of a scientific investigation. Its only objective should be to get to the bottom of how did this pandemic happen and how do we prevent a future pandemic. You can't, you won't, and you don't. Meanwhile, if you can stand 26 minutes of adrenaline-inducing fear porn soundtrack, Austria's Sky News has put together a segment obliterating the wet market theory, noting China's poor track record of biolab security and tying together much of the emerging findings supporting the lab origin theory. Dun, 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 dun. I tell you, man, facts are facts are facts. You got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. If you examine the facts, you can get to the truth, ladies and gentlemen. You really can. The question is, do you want to? I will drop that link right here into the live chat. Boom, shakalaka. There you go. Hey, Kyle, I see that. Can you go ahead and include that in a private message to me in the trading room, and I will look and add that. Okay. Also, with the ticker, can you also add the name of it and what exchange it's on, if you know? But definitely the name and the ticker, and then I can look to add that for you. All right, peoples, moving right on. I did just drop that link in there for y'all, so you should have it now. Okay. All right. Like I said, folks, I mean, what you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you going to do with this information? This is critical. Critical, 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 critical. And we are only scratching the surface. All right. Let's go deeper. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. Where we going to go next? Where do we want to go next? Where do I want to take you? How deep do I want to take you? I don't know. I don't know how deep. I don't know how much y'all can take. I don't know if you built for this. Are y'all built for this? Do y'all want to go deeper? Are you sure you can handle this? Are you sure you can swim in the deep end? Because it does get quite deep at these levels, okay? At these depths, it gets deep. We're living the founding fathers' nightmare. America is corrupt to the core. America is corrupt to the core. I've been speaking on corruption for a minute, hoping that somebody somewhere will hear me and start to wake up a little bit from their slumber. But as you and I both know, that is nothing more than wishful thinking. People normally do not wake up from their slumber. They remain in their coma, in that comatose state. And there's very little that you or I can do about that. It's hard to deprogram someone when they've been brainwashed. It is not easy. It is not easy, you guys. It is very, very difficult. And it's a time-consuming chore. All you can do really is put the information out there and hope that people get it and hope that they listen. Corruption's everywhere, you guys. Our ruling elites, devoid of leadership, are little more than the scum of self-interest, greedy grifters who rose to the top of America's soul-smelling stew of corruption. The founding fathers were wary of institutional threats to liberty and the citizenry's sovereignty, which included centralized concentrations of power, like a monarchy, like central banks, federal agencies, etc., 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 and the tyranny of corruption unleashed by small-minded, self-interested, greedy grifters who saw all elected offices and positions of government influence as nothing more than a means to increase their own private wealth and obtain dominance and power. The founders feared the dominance of self-interested, greedy grifters because they had no concept of the public good. To the greedy grifters, the government existed solely to serve their petty private interests and the interests of their fellow grifters. The founders understood that a republic required disinterested leadership capable of looking past petty self-interest to the common good of the people and their nation. They feared the election of self-interested greedy grifters because once no one served the common good, the republic would fall into a fatal disunity. That's what we see going on right now. Their fears are being materialized today. We are living the founders' nightmare, for America is corrupt to the core, while everyone gorging at the public trough bleats about the common good. The single-minded focus is on aggrandizing as much power and private wealth as possible, feeding their corrupt crew of insiders, lobbyists, business interests, bankers, and assorted other legalized looters. How does that break down? You want to know how that breaks down? Think about it. Do you know what a lobbyist does? A lobbyist is the dude with the briefcase. He shows up to a politician's office and says, we need you to introduce this particular bill or pass this particular legislation or remove a hurdle or roadblock or create a hurdle and or a roadblock. Here's a briefcase. I'll just leave this here on the table for you and you have a nice day. Politician opens said briefcase full of money. All right? That's how that works. Now, politician may say, no, I can't do the briefcase. I can't walk. That's too hot. I can't walk around dirty like that. Nah. I need you to put it on paper. I've created this shell company here. I need for you to give this shell company a position at your in the company. Go ahead and give me a 40% stake in this. All right, that's how we'll do it. That way, the money can funnel back back to me indirectly. All right, and I've already set this up in the Cayman Islands. So you break me off something proper like that, and you got a deal. Or like the case with Al Gore, when he left office, he had $100 million sweetheart deal at a hedge fund waiting for him at a private equity firm. Yeah. Straight up. America has plenty of law enforcement, but not for the elite. Insiders are, again, the guy who is sitting there who knows what's going on. It could be the CFO, the CEO, the COO of a company, whatever. He has inside information. He knows what's going on in this closed door meeting, and he's leaking it to certain individuals for his own interest. As far as business interests, well, it's not uncommon for large monopolistic type companies to unlevel the playing field even more by lobbying and saying, you know what? Don't you think, we'll use Microsoft as an example. And let's say they have, I'm just making this up just so you can understand it. Let's say Microsoft has a trade secret processor chip something in all of their computers. Let's just use that as an example, right? And they've copied, right? It's patented, it's protected, right? And let's say they call this the X chip. They can go and they can say, Mr. Senator, you're on the head of the computer committee. Don't you think it's a good idea that if a company doesn't have an X chip, that they shouldn't be allowed to operate in this space? If you want to be a chip company, you gotta have the X chip. Don't you think that's a good idea? Well, nah, because wouldn't that only favor you? You're the only one that got an X chip. You patented, that's yours. Yeah, but the components that make up the X chip, I've already bought those companies too. And I think that's a good idea. And then the senator says, yeah, I think it's a good idea too. I will introduce that to the committee. Next thing you know, it's now a law. You got to have an X chip if you want to become a chip maker, or if you want to get into the computer market space. Let's say in order to get this X chip, it costs you $100,000 per chip. All right. Well, unless you're one of the big 5 computer companies in this scenario, you can't afford to play in the space. The big 5 people are backing this because they don't want any more competition entering into their space. So they've basically created a guild that only consists of themselves, and they keep everyone else out. That is a practice that has been common in America for decades. America has plenty of law enforcement, prosecutors, and prison cells for those who loot a Whole Foods, but none of those who loot the public treasury, commit stock market swindles, or financial fraud on a monumental scale. Okay? Does anyone remember the MF Global crises? They threw a couple of young kids under the bus while John Corzine got a chance to walk away scot-free. I did videos on that back during that time. You can search through my YouTube channel and get more information on that. Not only did no one go to prison for the rampant institutionalized fraud of the 2008 looting, now known as the global financial meltdown, but the looters were bailed out by the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. Why do you think they were bailed out, ladies and gentlemen? Because they did the bidding of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. That was their reward. They said, good job. Thank you, Richard. We couldn't have accomplished this without you. Here's the bailout we promised you. Here's the golden parachute for you. Yep. More recently, no one was even questioned when a biotech company issued a press release about a COVID-19 vaccine trial that boosted the stock's price just long enough for insiders to dump millions of dollars of shares on a credulous public and also sell new shares in the company at a premium, a classic looting strategy known as pump and dump. Penny stocks have been notorious for that for years. Members of Congress were caught red-handed in what amounted to insider trading, selling millions of dollars in their stock portfolios based on their secret briefings of the coming pandemic, while they reassured the public COVID-19 was no biggie. The farcical investigation found no wrongdoing. Of course, it's going to find no wrongdoing because you have the government policing itself. The government cannot police itself. I'm sorry. Institutions cannot police themselves. That is the height of fraud and corruption. Corruption in our political parties is so endemic, nobody even bothers listing it, except as a parlor game of pondering which party is more corrupt. Our ruling elites, devoid of leadership, are little more than the scum of self-interest, greedy grifters who rose to the top of America's foul-smelling stew of corruption. As for the nation's infinitely greedy billionaires, if there was any justice left in America, Apple CEO Tim Cook, notice how that name Tim Cook kind of rhymes with Tom Nook from the new Animal Crossing. For those who don't know, sidebar, Tom Nook is greedy, and everything he sells in the game is super expensive. CEO Tim Cook would be rotting in a cell on Devil's Island for buying back billions of dollars of Apple stock. Buybacks were illegal not that long ago. The cells next to his would be crowded with big pharma CEOs who advertise their products directly to consumers, also illegal not so long ago. Oh, you mean like, excuse me, when Bayer deliberately gave out medicine tainted with the AIDS virus? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. People, how soon people forget about that? America is now a pay-to-play paradise of greed and corruption. The public good is a PR cover for legalized looting, much of which now depends on the Federal Reserve's free money for financiers, parasites, and predators. If you think this is far too harsh on our current crop of greedy grifters and looters, please read historian Gordon Wood's epic account, Empire of Liberty, A History of the Early Republic, 1789 to 1815, which details the many critical debates between founders with fundamentally different views of what structures and safeguards were essential for the Republic's survival. When we look back at the genius of Hamilton, Madison, etc., and the Washington's obsession with ethics and promoting national unity, we are forced to weep for the pathetic, venal scum that passes for leadership in America today. The feedback loops of the founders designed to restrain the tyranny of corruption have all failed, as the biggest looters serve their interests under the guise of legality. That's right. They just passed little laws and legislations that indemnify themselves, that give them permission to do whatever. They always do that. When they make a new law, they say, oh, let's go ahead and make it so that we don't have to abide by it. Unbelievable. The founders weren't saints. They were flawed, as are all humans. And like all humans, they were products of their era. But they did have a keen, abiding sense of the public good. And when they clashed over ideas about banking, the power of the presidency, etc., it was not for personal gain, but for their vision of the common good. If any of America's leadership over the past 30 years had an ounce of concern for the common good, why did they enable financialization and globalization to hollow out the nation's economy and social order? Why did they do that? Why did they enable the frauds, skims, scams, cartels, and monopolies that are the foundation of virtually every American billionaires we pay no taxes empires of greed? The tyranny of corruption thrives in an amoral cesspool of anything goes and winners take all. In today's America, the tyranny of corruption has been so normalized that America's polarized populaces are blind to the profound corruption of their parties and institutions. You still got people say, oh, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, as if there's any difference. As in the last days of the Western Roman Empire, the masses are made complicit with bread and circuses, mimicking their leaders, debasement of the public good to feeding at the public trough. These are the troubled years that came before the deluge. Jackson Brown. For as Miss Dillon put it, a hard rain's gonna fall. This is how systems collapse, ladies and gentlemen. Stable systems buffer at 100%. Apparent stability purchased at cost of thinning the buffer. Then the buffer collapses, system crashes, and stability lost. We are here. Apparent recovery drains buffer to 1%. Crisis destabilization draws down buffer to 50% to restore stability. Once the system crashes, recovery is no longer possible. Note that the system only declined 10%, but the buffer declined 50%. The damage done to the buffer is not visible. Ladies and gentlemen, you better wake up. 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 Speaking of collapse, did you know that California is now facing financial collapse as it moves to allow businesses to walk away from commercial leases? You see the corruption, guys? Corruption always leads to collapse. It's corruption within, not from without. The Roman Empire fell because of corruption. Corruption crashed the Roman Empire. Corruption. California is the same state that if you're a family and due to no fault of your own, loss of job, whatever, and you lose your job and therefore lose your place of residence and you're homeless, do you know the state will come and take your kids away? If you're homeless in California with children, the state will come and take your children away. But yet they're going to let businesses walk away from their commercial leases. What do you call that? See, America, you can't even digest your own meat. You don't eat your own cooking. For years, all you heard was those that have, especially the middle class. The middle class is funny. The elites, the 1%, made the middle class think that they were them, that they were one of them. They thought this for decades. Remember the yuppies of the 80s with their BMWs? Remember that? And living in their townhouses? Well, you know what? They were the middle class, and they were being told that they were the 1%, that they were elite, that they were in the elite status. That's what they were being told. So they thought they were better than everyone else who was not middle class. Anyone beneath them was a slacker, you're a drug addict, you're an alcoholic, you're addicted to gambling, you got something wrong with you mentally, you have no work ethic, that's why you're stuck working at McDonald's, blah, blah, blah. And they look down on the working poor. They look down on those that were living off of food stamps and Medicaid and all of that. They look down on them. Talked about them, jokes were made about them, but now the middle class has become the lower class. And now it's okay. It's in vogue to be on welfare. It's in vogue to have an EBT card. It's in vogue to have Medicaid and have someone else pay for it. But these are the same people that were talking down on those that were in that circumstance. You see what I'm saying? And now they're saying it's okay. They were calling people deadbeats for not paying their mortgage. Remember the mortgage crisis when it came? They put it all on the subprime people and said, this is all because of those deadbeats. You shouldn't have gave them loans anyway. Blah, 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 blah. And the law stated that if a person defaulted on their home, they could still be liable for the difference after the bank sells the home. Did you know that? Did you know that? But no, you're going to let these businesses walk away from their commercial leases with no pain of restitution. If a person gets evicted, they're coming after you for the money. You don't just walk away. They're going to come after you for the money. But yet, they're going to let businesses do this, and it's okay in California. And yet the people, you're not rioting over that. You're not marching over that. You could care less about that. You could care less about that. People right now are rioting for the sake of rioting. They don't give a darn about Floyd. You didn't even know him. And those that know him probably even speak to him on a regular basis. So cut it out. You're rioting because you want to. You're not rioting over real things, real facts, real issues like this one. The ruling elite keeps punching you in the face and you keep taking it and ignoring it. You say, I'm not getting punched in the face. It's just raining. One of the bedrocks of modern U.S. capitalism, which is now mutating by the day, if not the hour, as the Fed scrambles to preserve at any cost, is the towering edifice after decades of malinvestment, even the nationalization of the very capital markets that made America great. And one of the constants, along with the death in taxes, is that residential debt is non-recourse, meaning one can simply walk away from one's mortgage if the bill is untenable, while commercial debt is recourse or pledged by collateral that has to be handed over to the creditor if an event of default occurs. However, in the aftermath of the sheer devastation unleashed upon countless small and medium commercial businesses, which will be forced to file for bankruptcy by the thousands, this may all change very soon. As the Commercial Observer reports, last Friday, the California Senate Judiciary Committee advanced a bill that would allow small businesses like cafes, restaurants, and bars to renegotiate and modify lease deals if they have been impacted by shelter-in-place orders and economic shutdowns. If an agreement isn't reached after 30 days of negotiations, the tenant can break the lease with no penalty, effectively starting a revolution in the world of credit by retroactivating, transforming commercial loans into non-recourse debt. Landlord advocates have predictably been mobilizing in opposition, arguing that the proposal is unconstitutional and that it would append leases around the state. Justin Thompson, a real estate partner with Nixon Peabody, told Commercial Observer that it was illuminating to see so many industry organizations come out so vehemently opposed in a short period of time. Having heard the industry groups all week, Thompson said the general consensus in the commercial real estate community is that the bill is overly broad, overreaching, and is a bit of a sledgehammer when something less blunt would do. Everyone recognizes that restaurant tenants and smaller non-franchise retail tenants in particular really are in dire straits and in need of assistance. Thompson said, but I think the implications of SB 939 are really laying it at the feet of the landlords and putting them in a situation where even if they have tenants that were going to make it through this, they might now rethink that and leave the landlord in the lurch. Senate Bill 939 was initially introduced as a statewide moratorium that will prohibit landlords from evicting businesses and nonprofits that can't pay rent during the coronavirus emergency. But it was amended in the week to also give smaller businesses the ability to trigger renegotiations if they have lost more than 40% of their revenue due to emergency government restrictions, and if they will be operating with stricter capacity limits due to continued social distancing mandates. If the parties do not reach a mutually satisfactory agreement within 30 days after the landlord received the negotiation notice, then the tenant can terminate the lease without liability for future rent, fees, or costs that otherwise would have been due under the lease. Once the bill's authors, Senator Scott Wiener, said during the hearing that the bill is focused on the hospitality sector, which has been most devastated. The renegotiation provision will not apply to publicly owned companies or their businesses. The law would be in effect until the end of 2021 or 2 months after the state of emergency ends, whichever is later. Quoted by the Commercial Observer, Wiener argued that the state faces a mass extinction event of small businesses and nonprofits in every neighborhood, and the very real prospect of them permanently closing due to prolonged mandates that reduce capacity, chopping in half someone's businesses. This would change the face of our state permanently, he said. It would severely hamper our ability to recover. And while not everyone shares this view, most seem to agree on one thing. One way or another, California is screwed. Matthew Hargrove, Senior VP of Government Relations for the California Business Properties Association, known as CBPA, wrote a letter to the committee saying SB 939 could cause a financial collapse. So the choice facing California is either a mass extinction event of small businesses or financial collapse. Sounds about right. And I have to admit, it is just the stupidity of those in power and authority. They're proving to be quite incompetent during this crisis. Because now you got people saying, oh yeah, we're going to reopen, yay, all is well, but all is not well. Because you're limiting capacity, you're rationing on top of that. So that right there is hurting sales. When you start rationing, that hurts, that impacts sales monumentally. Then on top of that, not only are you hurting sales by rationing, but then you're changing the way that these companies do business. And by the new mandates that have been set, they're only going to be maybe at a fourth of their capacity pre-lockdown. A lot of places like hair salons and barbershops are now going to be appointment only, and maybe one or two persons allowed inside the shop at once. Where they used to have it full, packed full of people. Now you can only do one or two at a time. That is going to severely hamper their productivity. Severely. Even the grocery stores. Some of them now, they have, you have to form a line outside and they'll let a few people in at a time if it gets too crowded. And you have to wear a mask before you can even enter the store. And in the case of restaurants, they want your name, address, and phone number. And in some places, not only that, they want to take your temperature before you can enter the building. So now I got to let a person who is not medically certified, they're not a nurse, they're not a doctor, and they want to now take my temperature before I can go buy groceries. You want to take my temperature before I can go get my hair cut at the barber's? You want to take my temperature before I can go and get my weave at the hairstylist? They got to take my temperature? Isn't that invasion of my privacy? Don't I have a right? Whatever happened to HIPAA? Isn't that a violation of HIPAA? Anything that has to do with my medical condition, diagnosis, etc., is private to me only? Did you know that? HIPAA, baby. What's up? I'm telling you, people better wake up. Wake up. This postponement of rents will cause landlords' financials to crumble and lead to lenders putting out cash calls to lower loan balance and foreclose when landlords cannot pay, and cripple landlords' abilities to keep their properties open and maintain, the open letter read. CBPA also argued it is unconstitutional for a state to pass a law impairing the obligation to contracts, and warned it would allow one party to unilaterally abrogate real estate leasing contracts. That is correct. That is also extremely correct. And this is why, if you see, I told you, everything comes back round to these markets. To these markets. Case in point, ticker IYR, the real estate ETF, the commercial real estate ETF. No wonder why it can't get up. It is falling and it can't get up. It is struggling. CBPA is the designated legislative advocate in California for the International Council of Shopping Centers, the California chapters of the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, the Building Owners and Managers Association of California, the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trust, AIR Commercial Real Estate Association, and others. Those groups also warned members and clients about the bill and voiced opposition during the hearing on Friday. Thompson added that the bill risks crushing foundational landlord-tenant relationships throughout the state. Worse, if it passes to California and is adopted in other states across the country, the very foundations of modern finance will be shaken, resulting in catastrophic consequences. Everything we do, especially in real estate, runs on relationships, he said. I think that when you tip the balance so far in favor of the tenant, that way that SB 939 does, it certainly strikes at the heart of the idea that we are in this together. This does not make it feel like landlords and tenants are in this together anymore, and they are right. The law firm Buchalter, which has offices in LA, Orange County, and San Francisco, and around the West Coast, warned clients that the bill sets a terrible precedent that will append all your leases. This is dangerous because there are retirees that depend on the income derived from being landlords. A lot of them have invested money into these real estate investment trusts, and they get paid dividends. They get paid either monthly or quarterly, whatever, and that's how they live. All right? That's how they live. So if you take this away, do you know the unintended consequences are going to be catastrophic, not just for the companies, but also for consumers and also for those that derive their income from real estate investment trusts. REITs pay nice dividends, and have been stable for years. If you want any kind of retirement income, if you just want some kind of passive income, period, people put money in REITs. Every idiot on Wall Street knows that. And now you want to take that away? I told you, I warned you, people. This all goes back to what I was telling you in the beginning. What they're doing is they're closing all avenues of escape for the average man on the street. They're taking away your stock market. They're taking away your dividends. They're taking away your gold. They're taking away your silver. They're taking away your crypto escape for cryptocurrencies. They've taken away the escape using the bond market. You can't go nowhere now. You can't sell crack on the street corner because the feds are there watching and they got informants, confidential informants. You can't make money. No, they're making it hard for you to get anything shaken. Straight up. Excuse me. Weiner said they are sensitive to the needs of property owners in terms of their loan obligations. It's a complicated issue. We don't want these property owners to default on their loans, he said, but we also need to be clear these landlords aren't going to be able to collect the pre-COVID rents from these restaurants, bars, and cafes. That is not the reality. The choice is not between full rent and reduced rent. The choice is between reduced rent and no rent. He argued current leases negotiated before the pandemic reflect a different financial reality. Restaurants, bars, and cafes are expected, frankly, to just suck it up and magically come up with the high rent that was obtained in pre-COVID circumstances, he said. This provision is not for leases to be terminated. It is to provide space and incentive to actually get the renegotiation done. We know that overwhelmingly these businesses don't want to close down. This is their life's work. They want to find a way to survive. Winter said many commercial landlords are already working with renters, waiving back rents and restructuring leases. It's not in anyone's interest where the landlord gets no revenue, he said. Sadly, on the other hand, all too many commercial landlords are refusing to negotiate, are insisting that the pre-COVID unrealistic rent be paid, are invoking lease rent escalators, are imposing late fees on back rent. That is happening all over the state. As a matter of fact, it's happening all over the United States. During a press conference Thursday, Roberta Economidis, a partner with GE Law Group Hospitality Law Practice, said that in order to survive, Hospitality-related businesses need long-term rent relief, not simply a deferral on high rents now that will become an insurmountable debt later. Governor Gavin Newsom already gave local governments authority to halt commercial evictions, and some cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles quickly did so. But SB 939 would cover all California businesses and nonprofits from eviction, whether their local jurisdictions have acted to do so or not. SB 939 will be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee this month. If passed, it will trigger the next wave of devastation in the commercial real estate space. Let me drop this link here in the live chat for you guys. There you go. I don't know, man. I don't. Like I said, just when you think that you can step away from the nonsense, that things are calming down, that calmer heads will prevail, that's when they hit you with this foolishness. All right? Unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? It's that bad. They want to take away all your avenues, folks. More and more, I'm becoming convinced every day that it's going to be impossible for you to make it financially without subscribing to the PulseWave price trigger reports at pulsewavetrading.com. How do you do it? How do you invest in this environment? How do you trade the markets without knowing when the market's going to rise or fall in advance of it doing so without the price trigger reports? It's impossible. It's impossible. Just when you thought the government wasn't finished with you yet. Short sellers have been looted as global markets hit 3-month highs after nationwide riots turned deadly. Notice how the worse society gets, the higher the Dow Jones rises. Who told you that? Come on. Who told you that? Who said it first? I said the higher the Dow goes, the worse the economy will get, the worse it will get. Now you're starting to believe me. Now you're starting to believe me. Now you're starting to believe me. Now. Why now? Why now? I've been saying this stuff for years. Ladies and gentlemen, the social contract between government and people is unraveling. Numbers, budgets, charts, and graphs about government finances. That's what we do here. We try to understand where public money should be spent and what it accomplishes, according to Mark Glennon via wirepoints.org. Through that lens, it's difficult to know where to begin on what has befallen the Chicago area and most of the country. For now, this simple observation seems paramount. The most fundamental element of the social contract between government and the people is cracking, because people are cracking up. That's the obligation of government, to keep its citizens safe. For what? We surrender a portion of our freedom and wealth to government for the collective good. That arrangement has been recognized as a foundational philosophy of civil society since Thomas Hobbes articulated it over 300 years ago. Citizens expect government to protect their lives and adhere to a civil process, even when being arrested, just as they expect to be protected from riots and looting. Both expectations are now broken. The sight of looters and arsonists pillaging stores at will has shaken the confidence of many that law enforcement is capable of maintaining the peace. It has also tainted the very real grief felt over the tragic loss of life. That's not from a source that's unsympathetic to George Floyd or protesters. It's from an editorial in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. What will be the consequences breaking the social contract, the breakdown of society? Speculate if you want, but know that it may extend far beyond George Floyd's murder and the resulting violence. That's right, you have the breaking down of society. the breaking down of society. And you've been conditioned for this, ladies and gentlemen. You've been conditioned ever since you could walk and talk. Well, it looks like the Renaissance is over, right? The resistance's long anticipated Second Civil War has finally begun, more or less exactly on cue. Rioting has broken out across the nation. People are looting and burning stores and attacking each other in the streets. Robocops are bleeding, tear gassing and shooting people with non-lethal projectiles. By the way, those bean bags hurt. If you ever been hit with them bean bags, woo! Them bean bags can knock a 200-pound grown man off his feet. Them things hurt. FYI. Protect your neck. State National Guards have been deployed, curfews imposed, emergencies declared. Secret Servicemen are fighting back angry hordes attempting to storm the White House. Trump is tweeting from an underground bunker. Opportunist social media pundits on both sides of the political spectrum are whipping people up into white-eyed frenzies. Americans are at each other's throats, divided by identity politics, consumed by rage, hatred, and fear. And let's not forget ignorance. Things couldn't be going better for the resistance if they had scripted it themselves. Well, actually, they did kind of script it themselves. Not the murder of poor George Floyd, of course. Racist police have been murdering black people for as long as there have been racist police. Nope, the resistance didn't manufacture racism. They just spent the majority of the last 4 years creating and promoting an official narrative which casts most Americans as white supremacists who literally elected Hitler president and who want to turn the country into a racist dictatorship. It's quite the other way around. It's already a tyrannical dictatorship. They want to turn it over to a global one world government dictatorship, followed by one world currency. And then the final stage is the one world religion. According to this official narrative, which has been relentlessly disseminated by the corporate media, the neoliberal intelligentsia, the cultural industry, and countless hysterical Trump-hating loonies, the Russians put Donald Trump in office with those DNC emails they never hacked, and some division sowing Facebook ads that supposedly hypnotized Black Americans into refusing to come out and vote for Clinton. Putin purportedly ordered this personally as part of his plot to destroy democracy. Actually, that is kind of true, but not true. It's not Putin, but the KGB. They put this plan together a long time ago. The plan was always for President Hitler to embolden his white supremacist followers into launching the Rahowa, or the Boogaloo, after which Trump would declare martial law, dissolve the legislature, and pronounce himself Führer. Then they would start rounding up and murdering the Jews and the blacks and the Mexicans and other minorities according to this twisted liberal fantasy. I've been covering the rollout and the dissemination of this official narrative since 2016. The writer C.J. Hopkins via the Consent Factory says. Wow, that's wow. Which has been relentlessly disseminated by the corporate media, the neoliberal intelligentsia, the cultural industry, and countless historical Trump-hating loonies. After 4 years of more or less constant conditioning, millions of Americans believe this fairy tale, despite the fact that there is absolutely zero evidence whatsoever to support it. which is not exactly a mystery. It would be rather surprising if they didn't believe it. We're talking about the most formidable official propaganda machine in the history of official propaganda machines. And now the propaganda is paying off. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been propagandized since you started kindergarten. The protesting and rioting that typically follows the murder of an unarmed black person by the cops has mushroomed into an international uprising, cheered on by the corporate media, corporations, and the liberal establishment who don't normally tend to support such uprising, but they've all had a sudden change of heart or spiritual or political awakening and are down for some serious property damage and looting and preventative self-defense, if that's what it takes to bring about justice and restore America to the peaceful, prosperous, non-white supremacist paradise it was until the Russians put Donald Trump in office. In any event, the resistance media have now dropped their breathless coverage of the non-existing corona holocaust to breathlessly cover the revolution. The American police, who just last week were national heroes for risking their lives to beat up, arrest, and generally intimidate maskless lockdown violators, are now the fascist foot soldiers of the Trumpian right. The Nike Corporation produced a commercial urging people to smash the windows of their Nike stores and steal their sneakers. Unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. Liberal journalists took to Twitter, calling on rioters to burn that SHIT down until the rioters reached their gated community and started burning down their local Starbucks. Hollywood celebrities are masking up and going full black bloc and doing legal support. Chelsea Clinton is teaching children about David and the racist Goliath. John Cusack's bicycle was attacked by the pigs. I haven't checked on Rob Reiner yet, but as I assume, he is assembling Molotov cocktails in the basement of a resistance safe house somewhere in Hollywood Hills. Look, I'm not saying the neoliberal resistance orchestrated or staged these riots or denying the agency of the folks in the street. Whatever else is happening out there, a lot of very angry black people are taking their frustration out on cops and on anyone and anything else that represents racism and injustice to them. This happens in America from time to time. America is still a racist society. Most African Americans are a descendant from slaves, or so they believe. See, that even has a negative connotation with it also, assuming that these slaves were not indigenous, but actually came over from the continent of Africa. Although some slaves did come over from the continent of Africa, the majority of them were already here when Columbus stepped foot on the shores. Legal racial discrimination was not abolished until the 1960s, which isn't that long ago in historical terms. The writer says he was born in the segregated American South with the segregated schools and all the rest of it. He says he doesn't remember it but he was born in 1961. But he does remember the years right after that. The South didn't magically change overnight in July of 1964, nor did the North's variety of racism, which, yes, is more subtle, but no less racist. Now, the Vulcan can concur with that. I will be honest. I did not really experience any of that until I moved to Northern Virginia. Then that's when I actually saw it firsthand. And it was kind of subtle, but not really. Kind of subtle, but not really. But yeah, it's a little trickier in the North. And believe it or not, Sunday is still the most segregated day of the week. You still have white churches and you have black churches. To be quite honest with you, it's rare to see a big mixture of nationalities in a church. It just is. And believe it or not, some of the quote unquote white American Protestants are still struggling with racism. And some will even admit it because it was how they were brought up. Okay. There have been some Protestant churches that are old and go back to slavery, and they still exist. I know one church in particular, up in the attic, whatever, they had, old stuff from way back in the day. And, slaves weren't mentioned by name and they couldn't join the church because they were considered the property of the person who brought them to church with them. So it would have the person's name on the book. So like, let's say we'll use Donald Trump as an example, not to infer anything, but just to use his name as an example. So let's say Donald Trump went to this church, right? And he had a slave named Clark. It would say Donald Trump's name in the book, and it would say, and Trump's Clark. That's what it would say. And of course, the slaves had to set up in the balcony up top, while the white people got to sit downstairs. That's how that went. Very interesting when you look at it. And some of those churches still exist, and they still have that literature, that stuff. I'm not kidding. It's very interesting, but that's a whole nother discussion. All right. So we have no illusion about racism in America. But we're not talking about racism in America. We're talking about how racism in America has been cynically instrumentalized, not by the Russians, but by the so-called resistance in order to delegitimize Trump. And more importantly, everyone who voted for him is a bunch of white supremacists and racists. And if you are a minority who voted for Trump, then you're just an idiot. That's what they say. That's what they make you feel like. Fomenting racial division has been the resistance's strategy from the beginning. A quote attributed to Joseph Goebbels: accuse the other side of which you are guilty is particularly apropos in this case, which is true. You accuse the other side for the thing that you're guilty of to take the onus off of you and put it back on them. From the moment Trump won the Republican nomination, the corporate media and the rest of the resistance have been telling us the man is literally Hitler, and that his plan is to foment racial hatred among his white supremacist base, and eventually eventually stage some Reichstag event, declare martial law, and pronounce himself dictator. They've been telling us this story over and over on television, in the liberal press, on social media, in books, in movies, and everywhere else they could possibly tell it. So before you go out and join the uprising, take a look at the headlines today. Turn on CNN or MSNBC and think about that for just a minute. I don't mean to spoil the party, but they're preparing you for this for the last 4 years. Okay? And there's a comment here that says, this reporter, hilarious. I have to let y'all see this one. This is hilarious. You got to see this. This is dope. This is real dope. Real dope. You got to see this. Got to see this. This is funny. Y'all peep that? Can you peep it? All right, it's the reporter right here. It's the reporter right here. Okay. And he says, as you can see, the protests are largely peaceful. I've only lost one arm. And you can see everything burning behind him. And you can see, see the bones sticking out right here. All right. So basically, if he only loses an arm, then it's basically peaceful. All right. And then you see the reporter, I mean, the guy, the cameraman, his shirt says criminal behavior excuses no network. Criminal behavior excuses network. CBE. That is dope. I like that. That was tight. I had to show y'all that. That was absolutely tight. You don't get no tighter than that. I thought that was very appropriate for right now. Wow. G Willikers, Batman. All right. Okay. So, not you black folks. I'm not talking to you. I wouldn't presume to tell you what to do. I'm talking to white folks like myself who are cheering on the rioting and looting and are coming out to help you with it, the author says. But who will be back home in their gated communities when the ashes have cooled and the corporate media are gone and the cops return to police your neighborhoods? That part right there. And the cops return to police your neighborhoods. All I could think about was that line from Vincent Price and on the Michael Jackson's Thriller album when he said, "And to terrorize y'all's neighborhoods." That's all I could think about when I read that. That just popped up in my mind. Okay, and this is where I have to restate for the benefit of my partisan readers that I'm not a fan of Donald Trump and that I think he's a narcissistic ass clown and a glorified con man and blah, 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 blah. Because so many people have been so polarized by insane propaganda and mass hysteria that they can't even read or think anymore. And so just scan whatever articles they encounter to see whose side the author is on and then mindlessly celebrate or excoriate it. Now, me personally, the Vulcan does not believe that of Donald Trump. I believe that he is an actor, and that's why he was put in this role. All right. Elections don't happen. Presidents aren't elected, they're selected. All right. Presidents are selected. This is all theater for you. They do a really good job of it. Okay. Who better to play this part of the phase of the collapse than Donald Trump? Who else? He's a good actor. Remember, he had his own TV show. Okay. He's like Ronald Reagan. He's an actor. Doesn't matter what scale of acting you put him on, he's still an actor. He still knows how to stick to a script. Okay. He's really good at it. He's a natural. Okay. Just saying. Just saying. I realize that's extremely difficult for a lot of folks to comprehend these days, which is part of the point I've been trying to make. I'll try again as plainly as I can. America is still a racist country, but America is no more racist today than it was when Barack Obama was president. A lot of American police are brutal, but no more brutal than when Obama was president. America didn't radically change the day Donald Trump was sworn into office. All that has changed is the official narrative, and it will change back as soon as Trump is gone and the ruling classes have no further use for it. And that will be the end of the war on populism. And we will switch back to the war on terror, or maybe the brave new pathologized normal, or whatever Orwellian official narrative the folks at Global Cap have in store for us. All right. Now, peep this last comic strip, which is kind of funny as well. Man, you can't make this stuff up, man. But this is funny. All right, peep this. All right. Notice how the cameraman is a donkey. All right. That represents the liberal media. See, it says MS media. The donkey represents the liberal media. All right. Because Democrats are the donkeys and they're considered, liberal. And then you got your Republicans represented by an elephant, which means conservative. Okay. Notice how his camera has a hose connected to it that goes to a gasoline truck. And as he's filming this, gasoline is shooting out of the lens cap of the camera and then the fire says riots and looting on it. So he's adding fuel to the fire. He's fueling the rioting, all right, with his reporting of it and the way that they're reporting. It's not just the fact that he's covering it. Just covering it doesn't add fuel, but what they write, their commentaries, their, you know what I'm saying? So this is a very telling picture as well. I thought that I had to put that up there for y'all. I thought that was funny, man. It was so funny. It was so funny. All right, so real quick though, let's keep it moving, keep it pushing. All right, so at the end of the day, we know what time it is. We know what's going on. But what this article stopped short of was telling you the truth about what's happening. See, they stopped short of going down the slope. They didn't want to go. He didn't want to go but so far. He didn't want to go but so far. But here on the pre-market PulseScan report, oh, we go there. We shy not away from controversy. We don't do that. At the end of the day, he believes that America is racist. I do not believe that. I don't believe that at all. Not for a minute. Because when you say America, you're saying that at its foundation on a governmental institutionalized level, that at its core it's racist. That's not true at all. You got to know your history and you got to know your present. The truth of the matter is America is classist. It hates the poor. It hates it. It hates the poor. It's classist. That's what it is. All right? You got to understand that. It's classist. Now, a lot more could be said about that. A lot more could be said against the quote unquote urban centers of America. A lot more could be said about the black media, the black civil rights leaders, the black leadership. I don't know why they say civil rights, because civil rights is already long and done. I think that a lot of the younger people wish they could have been a part of that. They lack something to do. They're bored. So they look for any cause of injustice so they can rise to it and make it seem like it's an institutionalized thing when it's not. All right? It's about classism. I covered that yesterday. All right, let me see here. All right. Okay, let me drop let me drop something on y'all right quick. Okay, so you're looking at, I don't know if y'all can really see these quotes good or not, but anyway, the Bitcoin futures composite index is now down $60. All right, it has just dropped from the 10,200 handle down to 9,590, and it just did it in a matter of like seconds. This is proof to me that they listened to this live. The powers that be listened to my live. They've been watching my channel for a long time and just keeping it on the hush hush. Yeah, they've been watching my channel. Yeah, they know what's going on. Notice how this happened right after I told you that they've cut off all your avenues of investment. I didn't say trading, I said investment. And I mentioned Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as one of them. You thought you was about to get rich. All you had to do was buy Bitcoin and then go out and party with your friends. No, ma'am, no, sir. These are not your great-granddaddy's markets. These are machines, computers with algorithms running. If you don't have the PulseWave price trigger report, how are you going to trade these markets? How you going to know when something like this is due to happen, bound to happen? How you going to know? You're not going to know. You're not going to know. You're not going to be able to deal with any of this. You are deceiving yourself. If you think you're going to be over here and duke it out with these machines, you can't. You don't know their algorithms. You don't understand. You understand nothing. See, if you had the PulseWave price trigger report, then you would have known that the futures composite index is pulse waving negative at the moment, even though it's in the bull market. You would have known that. You would have seen that happening. You would have known that. You could have did something about that. All right. If you don't have it, you don't know how to trade this market. I'm sorry. You do not know how to trade the Bitcoin if you don't have the report. How you going to do it? You can't. You don't have the numbers. You don't have the right numbers. You don't have the right numbers. You don't know what is going on. You can't possibly know. You're playing yourself. That's all I'm saying, folks. Straight up. Can't make this stuff up. All right, so moving on. Had to cover that Bitcoin event as it was happening. All right, we're about to wrap it up. We're coming to the home stretch now. All right, you know I like to go there and talk about things that people don't like. Now, this is the last article we just discussed was showing the mainstream media's involvement in the breakdown of society. We just exposed their involvement, all right? But now we're going to another level, to the other side of the extreme. We got to deal with the censorship issue. It has not gone away. It is only catching more fire. I like to deal with things that no one else is dealing with, so let's go there. New United Kingdom, new UK laws could criminalize journalism. British journalists and their sources are facing an unprecedented assault on freedom of speech, including the prospect of criminal prosecution. Threats aimed at whistleblowers and journalists were evident before the coronavirus pandemic crisis struck, but went largely unnoticed. The government's Queen's speech in December included plans for new espionage legislation. It stressed the need to combat hostile state activity and make the UK a harder environment for adversaries to operate in. An indirect reference to the poisoning in Salisbury of Russian double agent Sergei Skripal, I think it is. Skripal, Dipple Dapple. I don't know. Hold on a second. I'm back. But it also insisted that the Official Secrets Act, drawn up in 1989, must be updated and confirmed that the Law Commission, the body that reviews the law in England and Wales, has been commissioned by the government to do this. Yet proposals drawn up by the Law Commission to review the Official Secrets Act pose major dangers. Major dangers. Stranger danger. Whistleblowers and journalists could be convicted for revealing information about defense, international relations, or law enforcement, even if it was unlikely to cause harm. They would make it easier to secure convictions by weakening the existing tests for proving an offense. Neither would someone revealing danger to the public, abuse of power, or serious misconduct be able to argue that they acted in the public interest. In addition, maximum prison sentences on conviction, currently 2 years under the Official Secrets Act, would be increased. Moreover, it would not be a defense to show that the information had already lawfully been made public. Unless the information had also been widely disseminated, how would that be determined? Maurice Frankel, director of the Campaign for Freedom of Information, has warned that the Law Commission's proposals could criminalize the release of vast amount of additional information. Keira Knightley plays GCHQ whistleblower Catherine Gunn, who was charged with breaking the Official Secrets Act. The case against her was withdrawn when it reached the Old Bailey Instead of applying as now to unauthorized disclosures likely to damage defense, international relations, or law enforcement, he points out that it would be an offense to reveal information that the discloser should have realized was simply capable of causing such damage. A whistleblower revealing information or a journalist or a blogger publishing it would commit an offense even if there was only the remotest possibility of harm, says Frankel. Douglas Hurd, the Home Secretary responsible for the 1989 Official Secrets Act, assured the public that the measure would not apply to information of a general nature that might conceivably be useful in committing an offense where the chain of circumstance is too long and too uncertain. The Law Commission's proposals would scrap the crucial limitation. Frankel warns, importantly, officials who released information knowing that there was no realistic chance of harm would still risk prosecution without any public interest defense. Furthermore, under the proposals, leaking information that could obtain by making a Freedom of Information FOI request could also be an offense. Leaking information that anyone could obtain by making a Freedom of Information request could be an offense. More secrecy. The Queen's speech included two other little noticed measures that would bolster official secrecy. The government's Environment Bill would prevent the proposed Office for Environmental Protection from disclosing information, including about suspected failures by public bodies and organizations to comply with the law. Under the Health Services Safety Investigations Bill, a new body would investigate patient safety accidents or incidents in the National Health Service. But the disclosure of information held by the new Health Service Safety Investigations Body, the HSSIB, would be severely limited. The measure will remove existing rights of access to information under the FOI Act and the right of individuals to see their own personal data under protection legislation. The scope of this prohibition is remarkable, says the Freedom of Information Campaign. It applies to any information held in connection with the HSSIB's function that is not already published, whether or not it relates to a identifiable investigation or whether or not it is capable of deterring participants from speaking frankly to investigators, inhibiting investigators in reaching their conclusions, or causing any other advice effect at all. The current crisis has exposed the government's instincts to run for cover behind a wall of official secrecy. It has revealed what Frankel calls an epidemic of secrecy, insisting that it is following scientific advice while withholding the advice. It has only been leaks which have allowed the public to know the membership of the important SAGE group of scientific advisors addressing coronavirus and the report of a simulated influenza pandemic exercise in the National Health Services in 2016. At the time of writing, just 28 of more than 100 expert papers on the crisis has been published. NHS staff revealing shortages in protective equipment have been threatened with disciplinary action by their managers, who are themselves more likely to be responsible for those shortages. Instead of regretting, explaining, or justifying its decision to impose a quarantine on people returning to Britain after holidays or business trips, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, and the head of the UK Border Force, Paul Lincoln, appeared at a recent joint press conference to reveal in the prospect of being given new powers. Wow. But take back control. The cry of the Brexiteers, led by Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's chief advisor, takes on a whole new meaning as the government relishes the prospect of imposing more and more restrictions on the disclosure of information. The official appeal to stay alert to protect people from the coronavirus should now be adopted in the fight against increasingly oppressive official secrecy. You see what they let slip through the cracks? You cannot make this up. Dropping a link to the story right here. Sorry, hold on. All right, there you go. I tell you, man, see why everybody else is out here bugging and looking at the wrong thing. Look what's being done. Now, this is just reporting on what's happening over there. What do you think is happening on the rest of the world? This is alive and well, folks. Censorship is alive and well. And you have to ask yourself a question. Why now? Why now? Why now? Why didn't they do this a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Why now? And is the rest of the world going to follow the Queen's lead? Some people could they could cry wolf on us. They could say, you know what, it's funny that this is coming out right now at this particular time. I don't know. You can fill in the blanks there. It should also be noted that markets in general have now fallen apart. As we are talking, the NASDAQ is crashing. It is now down 80 points. The Dow is only up 66 now. Gold is crashing. Bonds are falling. Gold's falling. Silver's falling. Stock market's falling. Bitcoin is falling. I told you they're closing all the gaps. I'll make money in bonds. No, you won't. Bond prices are falling. I'll make money in the precious metals. No, you're not. Precious metals right now are falling. Bonds falling, precious metals marking, stock market falling, crypto's falling, your Bitcoin is falling. You see why these markets are trading vehicles, not investment vehicles? This is happening right now all of a sudden. See what I'm saying? You got to do the knowledge to stuff, man. You can't be over there bugging. You got to do the knowledge to stuff. Oh, and the dollar is also down. Dollar is down, bonds are down, everything's down. Everything's down. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? All right. The dollar's falling, bond prices are falling, gold and silver is falling, and your cryptos are also falling. What do you do with that, ladies and gentlemen? You gotta have the price trigger reports, man. I'm trying to tell you. How you gonna get in the game and you don't even understand how this game is being played right now? They're slamming the door shut on everything. Real estate is in trouble. Bonds in trouble. Everything is in trouble. How you gonna make money if you don't know how to trade these markets and you don't know when these situations are coming? All right. I'm just saying. Think about what's going on. Look. All this is being planned. All right. I'm telling you. I'm trying to help y'all, man. I'm trying to help you to open your minds, open your brains. All right. Do the knowledge to stuff. All right. Don't just sit around and just let things happen and be like, oh, well, it is what it is. Don't be that way. Don't do that. All right. Don't do that. Open your eyes, people. Open your eyes. All right. So PulseWaveTrading.com, you know what it is. You know how we get it in each and every day. This is the conclusion of the pre-market PulseScan. It's been real. It's been fun. Yada, yada, yada. But now we got to say peace, over and out. All that good stuff. Got work to do. Remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. I will go ahead and see the rest of you guys in the trading room and everyone else. I'll see you back here this evening for the end of day report. Move them stops, man. If you're in profit, move them stops. Do what it is you got to do, man. All right? I'm out. Peace.